For these past few weeks, we noticed that people really get excited about Christmas. We see Christmas decorations everywhere, outdoor and indoor. And people hurry to go buy gifts for their loved ones. Shopping malls are crowded with so many people that we may have a hard time to find a parking, right? UPS told the Washington Post that it's expect to deliver 750 million packages this holiday season, and FedEx will deliver 400 million. So there's a lot of Christmas parties going on. I myself have attended 3 Christmas parties so far, and maybe have a few more to go, not counting Christmas Day. So people in general are in good spirit, joyful and generous. Joyful and generous. So I have 2 questions for us to reflect this morning. 1, where does the joy of Christmas come from? Where does the joy of Christmas come from? The second, how do I testify and share the joy of Christmas with others? So the first question, where does the joy of Christmas come from? What is the source of our joy? Remember when we were young, the joy primarily comes from receiving Christmas gifts. As you might know, I come from a very small family of 11 siblings with 21 nieces and nephews. So every Christmas, I have an opportunity to watch my nieces and nephews open up the gifts. Maybe just open it and ignore it. But all the kids, they open the gifts, they get excited, and they thank their parents with a smile. Where does the joy come from? When I ask some of our college students, what are you looking forward during Christmas break? The common answer is sleep and spend time with family. So that joy, primary joy, is to sleep and to spend time with family. Where does the joy come from? When I watch the television, all of the commercials have one message. If you buy this TV, this car, this beauty product, this new gadget, iPad, iPhone, iWatch, you will experience the joy of Christmas because you get the best deal and people will look up to you. So our joy, according to the television and commercials, is measured by what we have. So the commercial want us to get confused between happiness and joy. Happiness, as you know, comes from external, what we have, gifts, parties, and having the latest product, watching the latest movie like Star Wars. Happiness is primarily a feeling. Just like any feelings, it comes and go. Joy, on the other hand, is come from within. Of what, not just what we have, but how we live. Not what we have, but who we are and how we live. So where does our joy come from? What is the source of our joy? In the first reading today, Isaiah talks about a different source of joy. He described his joy like this, and I quote, I rejoice heartily in the Lord, in my God. In my God is the source, it's the joy of my soul, unquote. That's pretty powerful, right? How did Isaiah get to this point? What caused this source of joy for him? Because of one person, the anointed one. And this person is anointed by the Lord. The Lord sends him to bring glad tidings to the lowly, to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to announce a year of favor from the Lord, and a day of vindication by our God, to comfort all who mourn. So where does our joy come from? what is the source of our joy? For Isaiah, the Anointed One, He is the source of our joy. He's the one who brings us joy. He has clothed me with the robe of salvation and wrapped me in a mantle of justice. And then Isaiah went on to describe two beautiful images. One is the wedding, the bridegroom and the bride. You know, the wedding, if you notice, first of all, I'm not married. I don't know what it feels like to get married. But every time I attend a wedding, I cannot help to experience the joy of the couples. Why? Because they must be joyful due to the love that they have experienced and want to share with each other, right? The joy that knowing that this person will care for me and be with me for the rest of my life. That's powerful. So that's the first image. And the second image is about the garden, right? With the tree planting and growing up and produce foods. To see the joy of the farmer seeing the fruits and the harvest of what they plant. The joy of salvation. So the second question, how do I testify and share the joy of Christmas with others? How do I testify and share the joy of Christmas with others? By learning from John the Baptist. In the gospel today, we see John the Baptist testify and share the joy of Christmas. John the Baptist came to testify to the light. And he claimed, I am not the light, but I came to testify to the light. How did he testify to the light? 3 ways. First, he testified to the light by pointing to Jesus. When religious leaders and people came to him, he testified to Jesus. I baptize with water, but there is one among you whom you do not recognize. The one who is coming after me, whose sandal strap I am not worthy to untie. So for John the Baptist, Jesus is the light, the anointed one, the one who fulfilled Isaiah's prophecy. Jesus is the source of our joy. And only Jesus can bring us the ultimate joy. He points to Jesus rather than himself. I don't know about you, but when I become success in studies or in ministries, I easily get caught up in the ego of me, myself, and man, rather than point to Jesus. So that's the first way. Second, John the Baptist testified not only by words, but by his actions and his whole being. He chose to live simply. He lives in the desert, clothes himself in camel's hair with leather belt around his waist. He eats locusts and wild honey. That sounds pretty good, right? We might romanticize it. Wow, this is pretty good life. But during Jesus' time, that's radical. That's very radical at Jesus' time. Because during Jesus' time, most religious leaders live luxuriously in Jerusalem, preaching in the temple. But John the Baptist chose to live simply in the desert and testify to Jesus, the source of life and the source of joy. So that's the second way. The third way, John the Baptist testified to Jesus by calling people to repent and prepare the way of the Lord. He even dares to call King Herod, challenge him to repent. Remember the story, King Herod, right? He married to his brother's wife. And only John the Baptist there to confront him, challenge him to repent. And what happened to John the Baptist? His head got chopped off. He'd been executed. That's how John the Baptist testified to Jesus, the source of joy. So what do we learn from John the Baptist? John the Baptist, he's so convinced that Jesus, the one and the only, the source of our joy. John the Baptist so convinced that Jesus is the only one and only, the source of our joy. And John the Baptist testified to Jesus and points others to Jesus. He chose to live simply and call others to repent. I don't know about you, but it's really hard to testify or to convince other people. But when I myself am not totally convinced, it's really hard to testify and share the joy of Christmas if we ourselves are not convinced that Jesus is the source of our joy. The word testimony or witness assumes that we ourselves have seen and experienced the incident, or we know the person personally. I can only testify that the Newman community is a welcoming community if I myself have experienced the Newman community as the welcoming community, right? I can only testify Jesus is the source of my joy if I myself have experienced him bringing me the joy personally, as Isaiah promised. Have we experienced Jesus, the source of our joy? Let me share with you two concrete stories as a way to illustrate and highlight some of the experience that our community have experienced. First story. I've been working here for almost 3 months now. One common story that I kept hearing a number of people who share with me the joy that they experience in this Newman community. One person told me that going to Mass is not his thing. He'd rather stay home watching football. But his wife encouraged him to check out the Newman Mass. So he came and stayed since. Because he felt a certain energy and joy that he doesn't experience in other parishes. Second story. Today, we have another family who want to experience the joy of knowing Jesus through the first Holy Communion in our community. So why does the mom, Maria, want her children, Renata and Sarah, to receive the first Holy Communion in our community? Because Maria, the mom, she herself has experienced the joy of knowing Jesus. Right, Maria? Yes. So you want your children, Renata and Sarah, want to experience the same joy that your mom, Maria, have received. That's the good news, right? May our Newman community continue to be a living witness to Jesus, the source of our joy. Amen.